When it comes to talking about how to achieve good health for all, we must talk about self-care. Self-care is about how we can take charge of our own health. While serious illnesses require care from medical experts, we can work on staying healthy by looking good, exercising, eating right kind of food, and also really look at our mental well-being. Dr. Shravan, I would like to start with you here. Perhaps the single most common reason people give up for not participating in self-care is due to a lack of time. How imperative is it that we take out time in our daily lives, even if it's very little, and especially now in the middle of a pandemic?
So I think awareness is the number one key. And we need to make this part of our dinner table conversation, that everybody is talking about this, and the pandemic has given us that opportunity where it is okay to talk about health, it's okay to talk about wellness, and it's really important to perpetuate that at the workplace and across our families. I think there's also been a lot of creativity in terms of wearables and other tools that are available to a lot of people, which make healthcare accessible. And I think this is where self-help starts from. It begins with awareness and having that conversation.
Dr. Jyoti Vajpayee, what is the self-care advice that you would give women through the different stages of their reproductive life?
Yes, parents talking to children about taking care of themselves. The menstrual hygiene is important, and their emotional and physical support is very necessary. Pregnancy is, I think, it is a stage when a woman is most vulnerable in her life. There's an onslaught of a deluge of hormones, I would say. Yet, there is that joy of carrying another life. So a woman really needs to take care of her health. She needs additional calories. She needs to eat right, with good proteins and with vitamins. She needs supplements, the vitamins and the calcium and the iron, folic acid. So she needs to take care of herself, She needs to ask for help, sleep right. I know it's very difficult to sleep when you have a small baby in your arms, but she needs to sleep right, eat well, do some exercise, and be connected emotionally with her friends and family.
अभी हम पारुल लोहरी के पास जाते हैं. पारुल जी, Momspresso, भारत का एक, it's India's largest content platform for mothers that I believe has over 30 million users. What are some of the worst cases of mothers not caring for themselves that you have come across on your platform?
We've come across many mothers, in our community who say that they've dealt with postpartum depression without even knowing what it is, and that too for many, many years. So I think the problem essentially, it starts with women being held solely responsible for everything to do with the home and family. And it gets so overwhelming that she feels, or unfortunately is sometimes made to feel, that even taking time out for herself is a luxury she can't afford, that it's selfish. So that is what we need to change around.
Yeah, right, Parul. Like you just said, it's so important we talk about it. Just by the way of introduction, Ajayita Shah, to what you do, you've been working for the last 10 years through your social enterprise Pancha Markets. What are the barriers to self-care in rural India, Ajayita?
The challenges are just much harder because rural women don't have outlets. They don't have space to communicate. They're not connected to digital solutions. They're not connected to health infrastructure. They're not being given information that's adequate. They don't have spaces to speak. And fundamentally, they live in 700,000 villages all over the country. So on a fundamental level, what we see is all the barriers that mothers have, these women have as well. The difference is it's poor infrastructure, healthcare, poor education, and unfortunately, poor agency to be able to make confident choices and decisions. So there's a lot of isolation that we end up seeing there in India, which leads to more deaths, more illnesses, and because of the lack of infrastructure and capital, it's harder to treat.
Right, Ravi, if I could ask you a question, we've learned so much in this whole pandemic, and one thing is we start bothering about self-care and looking after oneself because the public health system is so overburdened. So what are your plans in that area?
So we want to first start the self-care programs with new moms across India, and we have planned to reach out to 10 million new moms. And the year 2021 will be witnessing our reach to around 3 million new moms. We are taking 3 approaches. The first approach is basically the online approach, like we have the Momspresso will be one of the partners for that. Second approach is a community-based approach where you're working with the indigenous populations, tribal populations, where you need hand-holding on the ground. So we have the partners for that. Then the third kind of partners we have, like the frontier markets, who will be basically working with us on the blended approach, where there are digital solutions as well as the community solutions, which will be going hand in hand. So we are working towards that, like what various nudges we can work on, so that we first target the new moms across India, and then we scale it up.
Let's move ahead. We've spoken about self-care. We've spoken how important it is for the mothers. So let's talk about maternal health. Coming to you, Basanta, can you explain to us the importance of starting this nutritional care right from conception, regularly following the mothers, the caregivers, intensively in the first 1,000 days. We've been talking about the importance of first 1,000 days. So how can we prevent maternal and child undernutrition?
Let me come to when the child is born. It is very unfortunate that little more than 40% children are breastfed within 1 hour. What happens to another 60%? Why it cannot be 90%? Then exclusive breastfeeding is around 55%. What happens to another 45%? Why it cannot be 90%? But there are exceptions. There are districts, there are states which have performed well, and all of us know about that. And another important is the complementary feeding from 6 to 20 per month, which is very important.
And I wanted to carry on with that thought with Dr. Bhandari. Dr. Bhandari, nutritional deficiency, as we just heard, is really a huge challenge in our country. And the connection between lack of nutrition or poor nutrition and immunity is so interrelated. How do we handle this a major macro issue?
COVID basically paused the button and we started looking at our immunity. The immune function basically is the host response to any infection, whether it is bacterial, viral, or protozoal, and how do you combat that infection? The nutrition plays an important role because protein, for example, has a role to build up our muscle. Besides that, the immunoglobulins, and these immunoglobulins basically fight the infection.
My next question is to Pritha Reddy ji. When you educate a woman, you're also improving her health. Gandhiji said, educate a man, you educate an individual. When you educate a woman, you educate an entire family. So, what are the outcomes of those of a family? Most critically, those of her infants or the children. Since we know that only a Swasth Bharat can be a Sampann Bharat or a prosperous Bharat. Would it be fair to say that any kind of prosperity begins necessarily with good health of our women?
I think the Swasth Bharat has to be a Sampann Bharat because women have to really join the workforce in whichever aspect we look at it. They're strong, they're capable, and they're very committed to working. But it is kind of sad that in a country like ours, the DNA of an Indian woman or an Indian Nari is to put everybody else first before looking after her health. And I think that has really been one of the reasons why we're either talking about nutrition, we're talking about maternal mortality, simply because the focus hasn't been there, the communication hasn't been there, and that is something which is low-hanging fruit, and we need to step up on that.
I just want to take what you said onwards with Dr. Shanta Kumari. How does violence against women affect their health and their immunity at every level?
We need to understand the effect of this violence against women and how it is affecting women's health, especially women who are pregnant. It impacts the health of the woman when she's pregnant, and it increases the maternal morbidity and mortality. It can lead to abortions, it can lead to so many other mishaps during pregnancy. And as the child is growing up, we now find that even in the adolescent and adulthood, there is dating, courtship violence, sexual abuse at the workplace, and sometimes, unfortunately, in these days, we find even cybercrime is also increasing. And we find this has a wide impact on the overall health of the woman. That's the reason why we have to actually sensitize our OB-GYNs and everyone at large that violence affects the woman's health at large.
Absolutely. So I think we all need to take responsibility and do our bit. Thank you so much, Mr. Kar, Dr. Raj Bhandari, Dr. Shanta Kumari and Dr. Reddy for joining us. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the special show on the NDTV Dettol Banega Swasth India campaigns program, Swasth Bharat Sampann Bharat, and we are broadcasting from the Taj Lands End, Mumbai. I would like to welcome our next guest now. We are joined by Mr. Bishop Parajuli, UN World Food Programme Country Director, India. What has the pandemic done to existing food insecurities in the country? And are more and more people being affected by this now?
I think the challenge in the context of India has been it's a republic, it's a diversified population, and there are lots of people who have lost job, in particular during also COVID time. So these are all the efforts, these are all the concern which has resulted in the affecting the population.
Dr. Hemlata, we were talking about hygiene and we all know how good hygiene practices are very critical. But we have understood that even better it's become after COVID. We know the link between hygiene and infection, how important it has been. But what is the link between hygiene and sanitation?
Yes. See, last 1 to 2 decades, people knew that, scientists and academicians knew that there is link between sanitation and hygiene, but now it has become so much visible even to common man. With poor hygiene, there is increased rates of infection. Research has shown frequent infections like diarrhea and also chronic infections like tuberculosis impairs nutrition status. So when nutrition status of a child or of an adult is impaired, the immune system functions poorly. When immune system function is compromised, what happens? The frequency of infection increases. So this is a vicious cycle. When more rates of infections are there because of poor hygiene, infections will lead to impaired nutrition status. When nutrition status is compromised, what happens? The immune system is compromised. When immune system is compromised, again, infections, higher rates of infections and more frequency and also more morbidity from infections can occur.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hemlata. You've really explained it really well how important hygiene is. Ravi, just coming to you quickly, tell us about Reckitt's nutrition, hygiene and impact bonds. Just for our viewers to know, what are they really about?
When I talk about this hygiene impact bonds, so these are called the Dettol hygiene impact bonds. The idea is to save 100,000 kids' life in the state of Uttar Pradesh because of diarrhea. If you read the latest statistics, UP is a state which has around 400,000 severely malnourished kids, which is highest in India now. And with diarrhea, it's a double burden of disease. So therefore, it becomes very important to invest very judiciously. Resources are few. So anyone who is working on the task needs to deliver, and based on that, there is a funding mechanism. So once you deliver, then only you are paid. If you're not delivering, you're not paid. It means you have X number of lives to be saved each quarter. Based on that, the funding mechanism will take into place. And we intend to take it to all 75 plus districts across Uttar Pradesh in the times to come. And if this becomes successful, we will be able to take it to the other countries which are, which are ahead in curve from India in terms of number of deaths on diarrhea, like Pakistan and Nigeria. So if this model is successful here, we'll be also taking it there through our Reckitt programs.
और इस समय हम स्वागत करना चाहते हैं अमिताभ कांत जी का, सीईओ हैं नीति आयोग के, और मैं अमिताभ बच्चन साहब से गुजारिश करूंगा कि आप अपना पहला सवाल पूछें।
जी, अमिताभ जी, this is another Amitabh talking to you. We've been discussing a lot here with Pranay Roy about what is district aspiration, and the other topic has been rice fortification. We've not been able to understand this, so maybe you can just educate us on this.
every officer has worked hard to improve these districts on all these major health and learning outcomes. And they've done extremely well. So this covers about 20% of India's population. If we are able to make a major dent on the health outcomes in this 20% of the population in 112 districts of India, I think we'll do a unique job for India in terms of improving our health standards overall for India. So that is on the aspirational district. You know, in his Independence Day address, the Prime Minister said that we'll universalize rice fortification. You know, we are suffering from an intergeneration problem of anemia because of weak mothers. You have children who are wasted, who are stunted, who are underweight. And it's very, very important that we provide them with, good nutrition. And in India, about 81 crore people are given through the public distribution system. We provide them with rice. Through the midday meal system, through the integrated child development scheme, and what we call the ICDS. And in both these schemes, we provide rice. And what is very important is that you can fortify the rice with iron, with folic acid, with vitamin B12. And therefore, this becomes a very, very powerful tool to provide balanced diet.
Let's now focus on hygiene and germs. That's where we're bringing the focus. We have, new guests on stage with us. We have Rohit Shetty who's going to join us, and he's going to talk about how we're going to beat these germs and stop the spread. But Rohit, in fact, when COVID spread, you did a little advertorial, little video that talked about hygiene and the spread of disease. And Mr. Bachchan was also in that video with you. So if you could tell us about, the thought behind it and also the reactions to it.
Actually, it all started because nobody knew about this new enemy, how to fight it. Nobody knew about it. And then we had a chat with the CM, with few doctors. And then there came a point that India, what is more important is if actors guide you or give you some information about how you can fight this or how you can protect yourself. And that's how we went to Mr. Bachchan and we made a video. I think, if I'm not wrong, it's been 18 months now. That was the first video which came out where basic guidance was given.
So, Gagandeep Kangji, I just wanted to ask you, in the last 2 years, what is the most important thing that we've learned about, better protection from disease or a better protection for potential future pandemics? Because this is not the end of this pandemic, and a lot of people are saying it's going to be almost perpetual. So, how can we prepare ourselves to keep away from it?
I think there are two things that we can do that really matter. The first is to build up surveillance systems that actually share data across the world. We don't have that at the moment. It's something that WHO has been calling for a while, but countries have a huge reluctance to share data, and this is not limited to genomic data. It's data on the number of cases, the number of severe cases, hospitalizations, death. In India, of course, we have a problem doing that within the country as well as outside. The second part is to be prepared for pandemics by making vaccines. There is a huge initiative right now to try and predict which are all the viruses, and the next pandemic will be a virus unless it is an act of bioterrorism. Can we identify the 20-25 families from which these viruses will come, and can we make vaccines ahead of time so that when the pandemic arrives, we can roll out these vaccines much quicker than we've done before?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
So my question is to Mr. Rodrigo. This pandemic has shown us critical importance of hygiene. Do you think that COVID has caused enough of a behavior change in this regard?
The idea that an individual can do something to prevent disease is a key message. Health promotion in its purest sense, this is what it is. And so we need to apply all the tools that we have right now. And as individuals, this statement is a call to all individuals watching that you can do something and prevent so many diseases with hand washing with soap and water.
Yeah. So Dhiren Gandhi, I just want to ask you something. You know, it's incredible what a simple act of, washing hands can do in protecting us from this disease. In fact, this is something that Dettol, has been actively campaigning well before even COVID came about.
If you look at Dettol, Dettol has a very long heritage of, killing germs and protecting against illness. This is something that we've been doing for many, many years. To us, the pandemic was just another kind of inflection point to get the same message that we've been saying for many years across to people. If you look at the CDC's data, it says that the more hand hygiene that is practiced, the less incidence of disease is there. For example, you can have lower incidence of diarrhea by about 40%, about 20% reduction in respiratory illnesses like cold. Absenteeism in schools can be reduced by 30% if these illnesses are taken into account. Our own school program has seen absenteeism drop by almost 40%. Now, what happens as a result of all of these, and this is a simple act of just washing hands. What happens as a result of absenteeism going down is school dropouts go down. And as a result of the school dropouts going down, there is progress towards, and that's actually one of the insights that we've used in our latest campaign, where we say simply that families that use Dettol regularly have members that fall ill less often, and that can lead to progress in your academic career, extracurricular activities, or in fact even your career. And this is something that's core to the brand, and I think that's what we stand for.